Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Meet the Candidates. My name is Jonathan Grabowski and we are going through local elections for the spring 2021 season. And joining me on the show today is a candidate running for the Board of Selectmen, Joe Pacevich. Joe, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here again. I don't know how many times this is, but
well,
can't we just rerun one of my previous interviews? I don't know.
We got a few different questions. So,
Yeah, fine.
But thanks for joining us first off.
Thank you. Hello, everybody out there. Don't forget to vote May 1st, and you can early vote.
Right. So before we get into why you're running, some of the issues, who is Joe Pacevich, for those that don't know?
I know you told me that was going to be a question, and I've never prepared an answer, and I just come right on the set right now, and it just occurs to me that Joe is a very wealthy man. He's a very wealthy man. And I'm not saying I've got a pocket full of dough,
right.
But I've been blessed with incredible experiences and meeting incredible and knowing incredible people, and lucky to actually be alive based on some of those experiences. If you want to hear the harrowing details, I'm also a person that's on his own journey. Life is a trip.
Right, for sure.
And I don't want to get too spiritual, but it is a spiritual journey. And if you want to talk to me about that, I'd be glad to sit down with anybody and have a cup of tea and talk about it.
So talk about your community involvement.
Well, it goes way back to when I was a kid. In my family, we had people that were teachers, that were very interested in and involved in politics. Even my grandfather, when he came from the old country, he learned English, and one thing he really understood and really was very much, it just made so much of a difference in his life, was the U.S. Constitution. So for some reason, there was always that sense of responsibility and curiosity and a desire to be involved, and that carried with me all my life, Ultimately, I was schooled in environmental science and geology and political science, environmental law, and I just felt like you need to apply what you know to help out people around you and to help out your community, and you've got to leave a better life than you came into.
So you're someone that's involved and active in town government.
Yeah.
You go to a lot of meetings, you go to a town meeting. Why is it so important to be active and involved in local government?
Well, it's because the issues that you encounter, that, like I said, if you've got knowledge and you've got experience in an area, apply it. Now, I've been told, or has been suggested by my opponent, that I'm a complainer, that I just complain all the time. Well, I'm not going to bore you with it, but I could give you a list. And somebody actually sent me a list saying, Joe, I heard they call you a complainer. Well, here's what I know about you. And they listed all these things out, and I think about it and I thought, they're absolutely right. I said, all the people, the different groups of people I've worked with over the years, whether it be trying to get the Beacon 40B under control, or trying to assure the rights of voters through election integrity, or the right to speak and amend articles at town meeting. There's at least 30 things that I got deeply involved with in this town. And on many instances, I had to actually file appeals and file lawsuits. And to go into a hearing room with a bunch of really aggressive lawyers who are looking to knock you down, it ain't easy. It reminds me of being trapped on Mount Washington in a midwinter storm. I'll tell you, you really feel alone.
It's a good comparison, I guess.
And that's actually happened to me.
One of the many stories. So let's get to today. So why have you decided to run for Borah Selectmen, Select Board, whatever people want to call it these days?
I'll tell you, I've never given up the ambition, if you could call it that, of getting onto an elected board. With all the work that I've done in different areas, and I'm not bragging because all the things and all the projects and all the appeals and everything I've been involved with have been done with other people. I couldn't have done it completely alone.
Right.
But at this point, it's getting harder and harder to do it, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. It seems like free speech is under threat, and we need somebody more on the inside to look out for the public's rights and their pocketbooks, quite frankly. Under COVID-19, participation in town meeting and in elections appears to be down, and there is lots of work going, lots of things happening right now in this country around censorship. It's my way or the highway, and that's happening on both sides of the political spectrum. So that's why I'm trying to get in. I want to get in because I want to represent the people's interests, not just from my side, and I tend to be right of center, as you may know, but also on the left side, because the people on the left have valid arguments and valid concerns, just as the people on the right have valid arguments and concerns. We've got to find some kind of middle ground, and I want to be there to try to facilitate that. We need to open up town government. For example, the town Board of Selectmen doesn't have a public comment period, and it's always bothered me. The only board in town that now does a good job where you have back and forth is the Board of Public Works. Okay. Every other board and committee, maybe the Housing Partnership has always been run pretty well, doesn't really allow back and forth. Now I understand there are limits. You can't have too much back and forth. You got to stay within the scope of the agenda items. All right, that's the only fair to the rest of the electorate. But you need to open up the process to the people, and you need to let the people feel confident that they have an advocate on the inside. But it's really getting harder and harder with the public records requests, with the appeals and everything else that I've done. It's getting harder and harder to do that. And I think in an inside elected position, I could do more.
Why is it getting harder and harder?
Well,
is there a specific
you
thing?
You could be very cynical. if I may be cynical for a minute,
sure.
Power corrupts.
Okay.
And when people don't feel they're accountable or they're being watched, they tend to do things that they maybe shouldn't be doing, and they take advantage of the situation. That's one reason why it's getting powerful. And also because people are more hunkered down and they're feeling disconnected from the whole process. And that happens a lot in this town. I talk to loads and loads of people all the time. And people are literally hunkered down right now, not just because of COVID. COVID is making, has exacerbated the situation. But you've heard it, my vote doesn't count. Why should I bother? We voted for Joe 2 times or 3 times already. He couldn't get in. They shut us down at town meeting. I can't go to town meeting. I'll get a bloody nose. You know, they just don't feel their voices are being heard. You know, and I think that the people in office sense that, okay, and then they start to play a little faster and looser. Okay, that's kind of the cynical response to it. But you can see it's a combination of things. Now, for example, we talked about during the debate last night, and boy, I did a good job on that debate last night, on WATD 95.9. It's online. We talked a little bit about how local participation is way down. 5%, 4% of the electorate will go to a town election. National elections, 80%, 60%. Somewhere in that range will go to a national election, say in a town like Marshfield. Well, guess what? Most of the population probably gets 60% or more of their information from the national media. So they're always aware there's a presidential election or something like that. And then they go. Do they get any local news and information? Maybe 5% of what they ingest comes from it or is about local news, really? So, geez, isn't that funny how there's a correlation, all right? People are being driven by the national media and the big cable stations. And I said to the people, including the journalists there at the debate last night, I says, you're the 4th estate. You've got a responsibility. I'm Joe Pacevich. For 15 years, I've been going to meetings with video cameras, and now thankfully MCTV has taken the primary role in reporting what's going on. And we need more of that. We need more input from the local media. I'm doing my part. Let's have them do their part, and let's have the selectmen encourage it. and enhance it by any means possible.
Do a little Civics 101 here. So
Yeah.
what's the role of the Board of Selectmen?
Well, the role of selectmen, it really goes down to statute. Role of selectmen, they are, in a town like Marshfield, they are the executive officers.
Okay.
Executive, well, what's the root word of executive? Execute, right? They're responsible for making sure that the laws, the bylaws, and everything else, all the other regulations are obeyed in this town. Not just by citizens, but by boards and committees. So it's their job to see what's going on, and if there is a problem, they have the legal power to investigate almost any activity of any board or committee in this town. They also are responsible for appointments in this town, and there's dozens and dozens of appointments that make the boards, committees, the building inspector, for example, the plumbing inspector, and a whole other range of appointments that they are legally empowered to make, but they haven't been making. Those are the two main responsibilities that the Board of Selectmen has. Like my opponent says, well, the Board of Selectmen have responsibility for financial oversight or oversight of the budget. That's simply not true. They can look into it. They can bring in the treasurer or the collector or the accountant and say, give us the dope. What's going on here? That is true. They have the power to do that. But the primary responsibility, again, is like, for example, when a town enters into a contract or an agreement, they basically have to sign off on it. They have to make sure all the boards and committees are doing their jobs, that the laws and regulations are being obeyed. And they make all these appointments. And they need to be in touch. That's why the selectmen have liaisons to all the various boards and committees to make sure those boards and committees are functioning in the proper way.
So what's something the town does well, and what's something that you think it could improve upon?
Well, I think right now we have a good, we're doing so well in collecting taxes and fees. That's where we're doing a great job, because we've had enormous surpluses the last few years. It's been said, 7 years ago we had $1 million debt. Well, that's not true. The money was there, but it was in a drawer somewhere, literally. There were drawers full of checks. We had a dysfunction situation in personnel. We didn't have like a terrible economy in this town. We're always collected more taxes and fees than we should be. What happens is at the beginning of a discussion of the budget, and by the way, the advisory board, in addition to the treasurer, are responsible for overseeing the budget, not the selectmen, the advisory board. What happens is that at the beginning of every fiscal year, they say, oh, geez, looks like we're going to come up short. But what they do is they always underestimate the revenues. They consistently underestimate the revenues. And that's good and bad, because you want to err on the side of caution. Right. You want to be conservative in that regard. So they do a real good job of taxing us. And I give credit to Mr. Della Russo. I think he knows, from what I've seen, where every dime is. Mm-hmm. And he should be taken care of for doing that. We need someone like that doing it. And you're going to be shocked, but I got to give my tips, my hat tips, to him and to Mike Maresco.
Absolutely.
They've both got skill sets. They both know where things are. Now, here's the problem, though. They need to be more accountable and open about that. We need people that are dedicated and diligent in those positions, who have the skill sets and political skills. But at the same time, they got to remember, it's the people that you've got to establish a sense of credibility and trust with. And that's what I want to do. I want to make them do a better job for the people.
Okay. What do you think the biggest challenge the town faces, and how would you approach it as a member of the Board of Selectmen?
The biggest challenge is openness.
Okay.
And communication, really, between the officials, because I think that will bring people back into the process. That's the biggest challenge. Now, there are infrastructure challenges. Mm-hmm. Okay,
we'll talk about those in a little bit.
And that gets involved with taxes and taxation. So the challenge in that vein is keeping Marshfield affordable. We want our kids and our grandkids to be able to live here. We don't want people living here saying, oh, if I just hold on for a few more years, I'm going to make a killing on my property sale. We want to encourage people to have families, right, and to grow families in this town. Right. To me, that's like number one. Mm-hmm. What's more important? And however you get your kids, whether it's your first wife, your second wife, adoption, whatever, grow a family. That's where I'm getting kind of esoteric, a little philosophical here, but the real stability of society and community comes from healthy families. And even if you don't have kids, you want to be secure, stable,
right,
and in an affordable environment.
Economic development's always one of those things that the board looks at.
Yeah.
So what type of businesses should we be looking to attract to Marshfield?
Well, you're limited in terms of zoning.
Right.
We don't really, would have like one industrial zone in Marshfield?
Yeah, I think
and
so.
we have a vast commercial zone, essentially commercial zone around Enterprise Park, and we have R3 and R2 zones where you can have some combination, and we have the Brant Rock Overlay District. Whatever fits into those, you can look at the zoning tables. There's your answer right there. I mean, there's even I'm very active right now in the Brant Rock revitalization effort or study effort. I've had meetings with people involved with that. I've met with the group of Boston University students that are going to be producing a report within a few weeks, I believe. You can look at those tables and you can see what's allowed in those places, and we should allow them, even if it's by special permit. Brant Rock Overlay District, for example, there are always rumors. Brant
Right.
Rock has got more rumors than it has, floods, I guess. The latest one is there's one owner down there wants to have a small hotel. Now, I can see if you did a small hotel, it might be economically viable because we have people traveling to Marshfield from Jersey and the Carolinas to come here to do tuna fishing. All right, let's get them into the hotel room. Let's get them into the restaurants at night. Let's get them out on the boat during the day. Let's put together a package deal. Come to Marshfield 3 days, $6.95, room and board included. Let's do things like that.
Yeah.
I'll push for it.
So I've known you for a while, and when I first met you, 40B was a topic you were very, very passionate about. Is 40B still an issue for the town?
It is. It's an issue for everybody.
Okay.
As I said in a debate, and as I've said many, many times, and I've been to the hearings at the State House and at the Gardner Auditorium, as Inspector General, the Commonwealth's Inspector General Sullivan said, it's the biggest scam in Massachusetts history. And it's true. But basically, 40B breaks down the rules of zoning and siting of residential projects so that people can put in high-density projects onto any particular lot. And they could put it on an industrial lot, a residential lot, a commercial lot. They can do anything like that. It breaks down those rules. And at the same time, it allows them to pass the bill off to the taxpayer.
Okay.
Now, for example, if you can build a big 40B in Marshfield or any place else, and you can say, a certain percentage of these units are going to be 40B, so-called affordable. Now, first of all, are they really affordable? I mean, look at the income limits to rent a 40B or a unit or buy a 40B unit. Wow, it's like a percentage of the local median income. And when I look at that, for example, in Marshfield, if you have up to, I think it's around $58,000 or $60,000. I forget what the number is. It's up on the wall in the planning board at Town Hall. You can make up to like 58 grand and qualify for a 40B unit. Wow, I wish I was making 58 grand at this stage in life. Holy mackerel, But I kind of live small. I don't live in ostentation. I don't have a big house on the North River with a 1,000-foot dock to where I park my private boat, if you know what I mean. And I'm also not saying that living in such an environment surrounded by conservation land, that people, the poor people and the riffraff can be put into high-density housing in Enterprise Park, if you know what I mean. I've heard somebody say these things recently in this campaign. Okay. So what happens is you get to build a big 40B, you rent out a bunch of them at market rate, you make a lot of money, you get a few units set aside for the so-called poor people, and if they're making much less than $58,000 a year, so guess what? The state pays for it, they make up the difference. So now the taxpayer is letting the developer get rich while supposedly taking a big hit on those units that he has to delegate for 48B clients. But he's not really taking a hit because he's now getting some subsidization.
Right.
So I worked on the statewide reform and repeal effort of 40B. I was very active in that. We worked around the state. Unfortunately, the effort to repeal it failed, but we got well over 1 million votes. I think that sent the message to Beacon Hill. But guess what? Each year, 40B comes up in the State House. There are reforms and amendments to it to make it easier for all of us around the state. And they always get shelved and put aside. And that's the fault of our legislators. And that's where selectmen and other town officials can come into play. We need to band together. We need to lobby our legislators to take some reform action, for God's sake.
Okay. So kind of going off of that, how do we maintain Marshfield's high quality life while making sure the town is, air quotes, affordable?
You know, that's got a lot of parts to it.
It does, yeah.
You know, you just can't wave a magic.
Well, how do we find that balance? You know?
Through debate, through discussion. It really comes down to that. It comes to openness. Again, when we get financial data from our officials, you know, they're not always telling us the truth. Okay. Now, I would give them some leeway in terms of they're trying to be conservative and they're not trying to overspend. I understand that. They don't want to make themselves look worse than they are. But they need to give us the true figures. They really need to tell us what's at stake. You can't go to a town meeting and have the chairman of the advisory board get up, as he has done. He's no longer the chairman, but he's still very influential there. Don't touch this budget. We worked hard on it. Well, how are we supposed to know? Because we don't know. We don't have the inside information. So to find a good balance, we need to be honest and we need to have everybody engaged. For example, you know this is one of my favorite topics, the airport.
Absolutely.
No discussion about the impacts of the airport, either to the environment or to our air quality. And every time I try to bring it up, it gets sort of like derailed or sidetracked, you know, by various boards and committees. And I can't understand it. And see, then now none of the people are paying attention because they've been beaten down and frustrated for so long. So many people have been frustrated for so long when it comes, that they give up. I was talking to somebody today up in Wrexham. Okay. They said, Joe, you're running for office, that's great. When are we going to get sidewalks? When are we going to get pedestrian signs? When are we going to get crosswalks? We've been trying these things. 2 people have been struck by cars here in the past year. And when are we going to get those things? I go to the safety officer in town and go, hey, let me tell you, there's people up there that are getting antsy about this. And people have been struck up there. Yeah, okay. That's it. So there are some of us that persist and continuing to try. All right. But like I said earlier, for me, it's like, wow, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
So you talked about town infrastructure a little while ago, and
Yeah.
I want to get back to that. So we've had a lot of projects going in town.
Yeah.
Looking back in the high school we're currently in,
Yeah.
we've had the Harbor Master Building. We have a police station that just broke ground on. So how do we maintain these buildings and properties in town without really burdening the taxpayers?
At the front end, involvement of people. This high school was relocated because of the involvement of some of the local residents, to ease the impact on them, all right? I can tell you the story about the override, the $50 million override 2 years ago. I tried to ask questions and get information about the 4 projects, the police station, the DPW barn, the seawalls, and the senior center. And man, it was like pulling teeth, Even at town meeting on the override, I kept trying to get information, trying to inform the people. I was basically shut down. I was told you're disrupting the meeting, and we've been patient, quote, I've been patient with you, and the meeting has been patient with you. That's right from the mouths of a moderator. I'm a citizen. I'm trying to get answers. All of that influence has an effect on the projects. It had an effect on the high school. It's had an effect on virtually everything in this town. On that particular override, you can tell the way they choreographed that meeting and that presentation that they knew what the questions were going to be. And they were probably at their most efficient in shutting down the questioning, if I may be a little cynical again. Okay, but guess what? I had to then sue the town to stop that project, the DPW police station. I had to challenge the environmental permits. Me, Joe P. On the environmental permits, I did have co-signers, residents of Marshfield. On the lawsuit, I had to go it alone. Now that's time and money, but it stalled the project. That was a side effect, that wasn't the intent. And the town then had to go and look at the barn down on Plain Street. That was already there. It was owned by the trash company that the town had done business with in the past. That building has been renovated. It's, by all accounts, beautiful. I'm waiting for MCTV to do a tour of that building.
At some point, well, I've actually went and got my dump sticker there, so it's
Yeah,
nice.
but you got to go through the whole building and see what a beautiful place it is. And now they're going to put like a 20,000 square foot addition on it. Now, not having to fill the wetlands, buffer zones, and the floodplains on Parsonage Street and build new drainage systems for the DPW barn had a huge positive effect. It saved millions of dollars. It saved a year of time. Now the police station is being constructed unimpeded, unobstructed. It's probably going to get done under budget and ahead of time. That's where a citizen can have an impact on infrastructure. And you're welcome. I saved the town millions of dollars. You're very welcome. I hope the money is spent wisely, and it goes into the lifts and the equipment that the DPW needs, and then it goes into the equipment that the police department needs.
So we're getting low on timer, so we have to go a little rapid fire for the final few questions here. So if elected, what's one thing you want to work on?
Communication and openness.
Okay.
Again, as I explained, I think Mr. Della Russo knows where every dime is. I think Mike Maresco has some great skill sets. I think we can use their abilities and skills and the abilities and skills of our other boards and committees to find ways to better communicate with the public, to bring confidence to the voters who are hunkered down right now. The voters and taxpayers are literally hunkered down. They're being beat over the head with COVID-19 fear porn, if you could call it that, and dire pronouncements and statistics. And they're also feeling like their involvement or their voice doesn't count. I gotta find a way, and with the help of MCTV, which is huge. You don't understand, folks, how huge MCTV is. You gotta find a way to break down, to tear that veil, and to break those barriers.
What's a Joe Pacevich fun fact?
Oh, there's a lot of, I'm a real fun guy. I don't know. Life is, like I said, I'm a very rich man with a lot of experiences. Some facts are fun and some facts are like really not so fun.
Okay.
But they are valuable. Like I just mentioned, I was once, I used to do a lot of winter climbing, ice climbing and stuff. I was literally stuck on the side of Mount Washington in a fog, dying, and somehow I found my way. There was a route off of the ridge I was on. It's some of you people who know Huntington Ravine in Mount Washington, there's a route to get off of that ridge called the Escape Hatch. That's the name of the trail. And I missed it. And my glasses were fogging over. I had like one lump of peanut butter in my backpack. My water was frozen solid. I had forgotten my compass. So I had to go all the way around Tuckerman's Ravine and find another chute out of that area. So that's you know, you look back on it, it's like, wow, you know.
So if we were to take your iPhone mobile phone device, what music are we going to find on it?
Same, and I've said this before, a little bit of everything.
Okay.
You know, I've been so blessed to be in settings where I was able to enjoy the finest classical music in the world. I've been to a Stevie Ray Vaughan concert. I've been to a Ramones concert. My ears didn't work well for about 4 weeks after that. But actually some of my photos from that concert were actually published. So you'd find all that kind of stuff.
If someone wants to find out more about you, is there a place they can go?
Yeah, the main source of information for me during this campaign right now is a Facebook page.
Okay.
It's JOEFOR Selectmen, Joe for Selectmen. That's my Facebook page.
Okay.
And people can call me. I'm in the book.
Mm-hmm.
You can call my cell, 781-422-1179. That's okay with me. Just don't call me. Well, now I'm going to get calls like 1 in the morning. I know. But those are the two main places to get a hold of me. And of course, I mean, people recognize me around town. I'm not bragging, but people recognize me. I'm the funniest looking guy in town. My son is the nicest looking man in town. I'm the funniest looking man in town. So that's all from his mother. And yeah, just stop me and talk to me. I had trouble getting over here today.
All right. And last but not least, why are you the best candidate?
I'm not pretentious, for one thing, and I'm also not a creature of the existing status quo. Directorate, let's call it. Let's be kind and call it that. I won't use the R word like I often use. Yeah, I'm for the people, and I'm not a product of the status quo. Although I do work well with people, because on a lot of these 30-plus issues that I've addressed, whether it be fighting to downsize the Beacon 40B, or preventing the Maryland Street 40B from going in, or consulting with people on Spring Street, or consulting with people on Prince Circle about the Webster Point, the Marshfield Duxbury Line 40B project. I work well with all these people. I gladly share the information that I have. And I'm not a product of the status quo. My opponent is their guy. Okay, he's been groomed and he's connected to all those people that are part of the status quo. So that's why I'm the best person. I'm going to be an objective person for the people.
Okay. Well, Joe, I want to thank you for coming on today and wish you the best of luck this election season.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for Meet the Candidates. And until next time, make it a great day.